What they're talking about is not their proof, but it comes from Norway. The Norwegian seismic organisation called Nosa, they have a monitoring station in Romania, which is 400 miles away from the Kakhovka Dam. And they say that they picked up, at exactly the time explosions were heard, they picked up a seismic disturbance 400 miles away, which could only have come from huge explosions. They pinned it down to exactly where the dam was. They've pinned down the size of the explosions. You can see on the graph that they've published. And this has come from Norway. Now, this convinces the Ukrainians and the rest of us that a major series of explosions took place then, because you can only breach a dam like that with big explosions, literally tons of explosives placed at the very base of the dam. That's almost certainly is what happened, and the Ukrainians would never be in a position to do that. They didn't own that part of the dam. The Russians were in control of it. So, and we knew that they'd mined it last October. We were waiting for them to do this, and I'm 99% certain it was them.
And, of course, the reason that they would try and blow up that dam, if it was the Russians?
Well, because it then made it very difficult for the Ukrainians to attack across the Dnieper River. It creates another humanitarian problem for Ukraine, distracts them while they're trying to conduct this counteroffensive, and there's a degree of revenge in it as well. I think if you're going to attack us, well, we'll blow the dam up. I mean, they've been thinking about it for a long time, we're sure about that, and now they've done it.
So the Ukrainians feel they have proof that it was the Russians who blew up the dam. Meanwhile, the Kremlin is furious about a drone attack that they say was the Ukrainians on Russian territory.
Yeah, Voronezh, which is a town that's over 100 miles away from the Ukrainian border, so it's deep inside Russia. A drone attack today. The TASS news agency, the Russian news agency, said it was 2 drones, which is entirely logical because they're normally sent in 2s or more. And they say it was targeting a military facility, which is interesting. They normally would say targeted residential area to make the Ukrainians look fairly bad. It said military facility. We don't know what that was. But given that this was so deep inside Russia, I think it's the Ukrainians indicating that they're taking the gloves off. They don't care now. They want to bring home to the Russian people that if you invade your neighbour, there will be consequences. You can't pretend this isn't to do with you. I think that's the message they're sending, but it's a dangerous message. And I think Kyiv is playing with fire doing this in terms of upsetting their Western backers who don't like to see this sort of thing.
Well, I wonder if also part of that is to do with the early stages of the spring offensive, that we're seeing this change of dynamic from the Ukrainians. Where are we seeing this beginning of the spring?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all of these attacks inside Russia will get lost in the general drama of the offensive, which is another reason why the offensive has started. And so we know now that it's taking place in 3 areas. We can identify 3 foci of attack. One is around Bakhmut, north and south of Bakhmut, at Kakhovka, just north of Bakhmut, and at Ivanivsk, south of Bakhmut, not the town itself, but either side of it, the Ukrainians are pushing quite hard, and we'll see how that goes. But then the other 2, further south, are much more interesting and important in a way. Velika Novosilka, which is quite near to Vuhledar, which has been contested for some months now. There's a push going on there. But the most interesting is at Orikhiv, further west. A big battle has been going on there. Started a couple of days ago. We know that a lot of equipment has been used. We know that the Ukrainians have lost material. The 47th Mechanised Brigade has lost some Western tanks there. That's inevitable. We've seen that. So the 47th are fighting there. And there's a big battle going on for Orikhiv, as if the Ukrainians are trying to push to Tokmak, which is where the Russians have got very stiff defences. And if they get to Tokmak, they might try to push to Melitopol all the way down to the coast. In terms of strategic objectives, I call this Route 1. If they are prepared to take Route 1, if they think they're strong enough to do it, taking on the best of the Russian defences and push right down to the coast, then they achieve the strategic objective of splitting the land bridge in half, splitting Russian forces in half, isolating all the Russian forces to the west of that line, and critically, putting Crimea in peril. They can then bombard Crimea if they get to the coast of the Sea of Azov. So it's the most ambitious and dangerous thing they can try. We don't yet know if they're really going for that, but they're pushing hard at Orikhiv. They've made the Russians commit resources and reserves, which is probably what they wanted to do. Then they can have a good look at them. If they can get the opposition to turn everything on, then they have a good look at what's there. So this may not be the main thrust, but they're certainly convincing the Russians that they're serious about Orikhiv because they themselves are fighting a fierce battle there. So that's the one that I'm looking at with most interest. But there are 3 places now where this offensive is pushing hard. And we'll see. I think Kyiv may not yet know quite where it's going to finish up. It's assessing the situation. And so they may see how the Russians react before they decide where they'll really put their money.